And I've been nervous ever since. So I'm going to start drinking. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
The Milwaukee Police Post of the American Legion has held a ceremony on Veterans Day, or as it was originally known, Armistice Day, since 1939. We are proud to be joined by our brothers from Milwaukee Firefighters Post for the annual tribute to veterans. And this year, our co-host, the War Memorial Center, has joined us as a partner. Thank you. My name is Kendall D. Filan. I'm the commander of Milwaukee Police Post 415, Coast Guard veteran of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and the global war on terrorism. And I'll be your master of ceremonies today. The preamble to the Constitution of the American Legion starts, "For God and country." And so we will begin. If you are able, I invite you to rise, remove your hat, and remain standing for the opening prayer and the national anthem. Today's invocation will be offered by David Schultz, chaplain of Milwaukee Police Post and an Army veteran of the Vietnam era, also retired Milwaukee police officer. Dave?
There can probably be no better way to honor a veteran than through prayer, so I ask you to join me in prayer. Father, we gather with solemn pride in the heroism of those who have served and died. We seek to honor all men and women who have served this great nation in defense of the freedom that we enjoy today. Lord, you know the deep and how deep a warrior's wounds can go, both in body and soul. And we ask that you would bring healing to those veterans who still carry the scars and haunting memories of war. Father, we pause now to remember those who are currently serving. We ask that you would protect and provide for them and their families as they serve on our behalf. Almighty God, you know every veteran by name. You know their needs, both material and spiritual. We ask that none of them be forgotten or neglected. Please draw each one close to you and grant them your peace that passes all understanding through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Dave. Please remain standing as Milwaukee Fire Department Training Division Deputy Chief Christopher Snyder performs our national anthem. And you are more than welcome to sing along.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched with so gallantly streaming, and the rockets that were the arms bursting in air did prove the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Chief. Please be seated. Drinking again. I'd like to introduce our distinguished guests. He doesn't like to be on the dais, but I must recognize our host and partner in this event, David Drent, the soon-to-be retired president and CEO of this beautiful venue. And all, I wasn't looking for you, I knew where you were. And also events manager Jennifer Waller, who helps put all the small pieces together for this great ceremony. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, David. State Representative Jonathan Roscoff from the 19th Assembly District, a very interesting district that's a little skinny piece of land from Capitol Drive to Bayview. He represents this area and is an enthusiastic supporter of the Dry Hooch on Brady Street. Dry Hooch is a peer-to-peer, by veterans, for veterans counseling service, helping veterans and their families who survived the war survive the peace. Dry Hooch also offers post-traumatic stress counseling for police officers and firefighters involved in harrowing incidents. And Dry Hooch is providing the coffee today. Thank you. Mayor Tom Barrett has been a great supporter of this program for many years. Milwaukee County Sheriff Ernell Lucas. I asked about one of his
The cameraman isn't
staff
very
members,
good. He's all
Secretary
quiet.
Aaron Dobson,
Oh,
but
my
I
God.
mentioned because Aaron was a former Marine, and yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday, so I say happy birthday, Marines. Help you, where are you? Over here. Yeah, okay. Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office presently has one deputy sheriff on active military duty. Milwaukee Fire Department, Chief Mark Wolfing. Thank you, Chief. President Mike Bongiorno of the Milwaukee Professional Firefighters Association. And President Sean Lana of the Milwaukee Police Association. These folks have come into our association in the last year or two. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Mark Wachowski, former alderman, former county supervisor. Mark has been supporting us for decades, since before we moved to this beautiful place. We used to stand and freeze in the snow and the rain and the blowing snow in MacArthur Square before they moved MacArthur. Mark has been an outstanding supporter, and I thank you very much. Thanks. Even had that written down. Navy Commander Tabitha Eden, MSN RN, where are you? Clinical Associate Professor of Milwaukee University College of Nursing. And Kristen Peterson, nurse educator and clinical instructor for the Senior VANAP program at the Milwaukee VA Medical Center and their Senior Veterans Affairs Nursing Academic Partnership Scholars, of which we have the seniors on board today, 9. As one of only 6 sites nationally participating in this program, Mark had VANAP students spend 2 days a week for 2.5 years doing their clinical training at the Milwaukee VA Hospital and pledged to work with veterans after graduation. In exchange, they are eligible to apply for scholarships that are like a military ROTC program. Why are these folks here today? The American Legion is founded on 4 pillars: national security, children and youth, Americanism, and Veterans Affairs. We are having a ceremony today as part of the Americanism pillar, and these ladies and their students are supporting the Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation pillar by teaching the nursing students how best to treat our sick and wounded veterans. Thank you all for attending today. Our keynote address will be given by Miss Meg Jones. Meg Jones is a reporter for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel who specializes in military and veterans affairs. She earned a BA in journalism and history from the University of Wisconsin, where she was a member of the Badger Band and women's crew team. She has taught at Marquette University. Since the war on terror started after 9/11/2001, she has traveled to Iraq 4 times and 4 times to Afghanistan as an embedded reporter with Wisconsin National Guard units and other veterans units. She was part of a team named a Pulitzer Prize finalist in 2003 for coverage of chronic wasting disease in Wisconsin's white-tailed deer herd. Meg is the author of World War II Milwaukee, a story of World War II heroes, be they a captain of a Navy ship at Pearl Harbor, a member of the Nazi resistance movement, or captains of Milwaukee industry as the world's machine shop that retooled for war. She was a 2016 recipient of the Wisconsin American Legion Public Relations Appreciation Award for the many well-written stories which highlighted the numerous and various aspects of our local veterans in the Journal Sentinel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Meg Jones.
Thank you very much for inviting me to come here. I didn't want to wing this, so I actually wrote something down. Also, I wanted to wish the Marines a happy belated birthday as well, too. Now, we're here today to remember the sacrifices of American service members, including those who did not come home from distant battlefields. You may not know people who died serving our country, certainly not someone who died in every war dating back a century. So in this day of respect and reverence, I'd like to tell you some of their stories. Arthur Cornelius Ryan was a private in the Wisconsin National Guard's 120th Field Artillery when he shipped out to France in 1918. On August 29th, his unit took part in the Battle of Juvigny, one of the 3 main World War I battles fought by the 32nd Division. This is where it earned its nickname of the Red Arrow Division for slicing through enemy lines. Everyone in the 120th Field Artillery was a volunteer, including Private Arthur Ryan. He was 21 and he was from South Milwaukee. On the morning of August 29th, Ryan and 2 other soldiers were firing a French 75mm artillery gun, launching volleys of shells as the 32nd Division soldiers advanced on Juvigny. Ryan was feeling sick that day and had returned to his bedroll laid out on the ground to get some sleep after the firing started. But he later got up and returned to the gun. He was standing next to it when the artillery piece exploded, instantly killing Ryan and 2 other soldiers, Everett Van Imeren and Alonzo Cudworth. Those 2 men would later become the namesakes of American Legion posts here in the Milwaukee area. It seems that Private Arthur Ryan was fated to die that day. Large pieces of shrapnel from the exploding gun pierced through Ryan's blanket, where he'd been lying earlier. Had he been lying on his bedroll, he still would have been killed. Unfortunately, French artillery guns were poorly made and sometimes blew up when they were fired, like the one that killed Ryan. The 3 Wisconsin National Guard soldiers were buried around 20 feet from where they were killed. A soldier wrote in his diary that the next day friends and comrades of Ryan, Van Imeren, and Cudworth stood by the side of the graves marked by 3 little wooden crosses, crying and talking quietly. Ryan's body would remain in France until 1921, when it was brought back to America. 116,516 American service members died in World War I, including 3,932 from Wisconsin. If you don't know the names of any of the Wisconsinites killed in World War I, now you know Private Arthur Cornelius Ryan. The day after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, military enlistment centers were flooded with men and women eager to join the fight. Among them was Roy Marin. He was only 17 years old on December 8, 1941, so his father had to give his approval before he could join the Navy. Marin's picture appeared in the next day's Milwaukee Journal as he was fingerprinted at the Navy Enlistment Center in Milwaukee. He turned 18 the month after the Pearl Harbor attack, and graduated from Bayview High School early so he could leave for training. He served on the submarine USS Dolphin until he was reassigned in 1944 to a newly built submarine called the USS Bullhead. He was a motor machinist's mate. Roy Marin was the youngest of 5 brothers and 1 sister. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was only 2 years old. While he was in the Navy, he frequently wrote to his sister Florence and sent her souvenirs from his exotic ports of call. In May 1945, Roy excitedly wrote home on USS Bullhead stationery that he had managed to track down his brother Fred, who was serving in the Army in the Philippines. Roy invited his brother to tour the USS Bullhead, but Fred decided against it, a decision he regretted for the rest of his life. In his second to last letter to his sister, Roy wrote these words to comfort Florence. "Don't you worry about me. I'm okay and all right. Always think of you. Love, Roy." The USS Bullhead was last heard from on August 6, 1945, when the crew reported passing through the Lombok Strait near Bali. That's the same day the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. The Bullhead was likely the victim of depth charges dropped by a Japanese plane. The wreck and the 84 men on board were never found. The Bullhead was the last ship sunk by the Japanese during World War II. 405,399 American service members were killed in World War II, including 8,390 from Wisconsin. If you don't know the names of any Wisconsinites killed in World War II, now you know Petty Officer, Second Class, Roy Marin. Ralph Roland Jackson was too young to serve in World War II. He enlisted in the Army after graduating from high school in 1948 with a group of friends from Richland Center. A photo was taken of Jackson and his friends outside an Army enlistment center in Chicago. He's wearing a sport coat in the picture. Jackson participated in track and FFA at Richland Center High School. He played guitar in a high school string group and was a member of the school's movie projector society. I think that qualifies him as a nerd. He worked as a pin setter at a local bowling alley. The Army deployed Jackson to Guam for 15 months, but when the North Korean Army invaded South Korea on June 25, 1950, his unit was rushed to Korea the next month. Jackson was a military police officer in the 2nd Infantry Division. The war changed drastically after Chinese troops streamed into the country in late October. On November 30th, 1950, Jackson was in an area known as the Canary Gauntlet during the Battle of Changchun. He was told to take a jeep with other MPs to look for missing soldiers. Mortars landed nearby, sending the jeep and Jackson into a ravine. The jeep was found, but Jackson was not. He was 20 years old when he disappeared. A few weeks later, his family was notified that he was missing. Jackson was declared dead on December 31st, 1953, and a memorial service was held in his hometown the next year. The whereabouts of his body are unknown. 36,516 American service members died in the Korean War, including 729 from Wisconsin. If you don't know the name of any Wisconsinites killed in Korea, now you know Sergeant Ralph Jackson. Jim Van Bendigum dropped out of Kenosha Bradford High School to join the Army in 1967. He was tall, handsome, and he had a lot of girlfriends. As a kid, he had a newspaper route, and he loved to hunt and fish with his 3 brothers. 3 weeks after he arrived in Vietnam with the 4th Infantry Division, Van Bendigum was gravely wounded in a battle in the Ia Drang Valley near the Cambodian border when his company was overrun by enemy troops. He was 19. American soldiers said they saw him carried off by North Vietnamese troops. He was seen alive by other Americans captured in the same battle a week later at a communist field hospital in Cambodia. American prisoners of war later learned that Van Bendigum died from his wounds. 3 days after the battle, Army officers knocked on his family's door in Kenosha. His mother was home alone when she got the news her son was missing in action. Van Bendigum's family thought he was a prisoner of war and waited 6 years until Vietnam POWs were sent home in 1973. When he was not among the POWs getting off the planes, they realized he wasn't coming home. Van Bendigum's family held a memorial service for him. There was no casket, just a folded flag on a table. But Van Bendigum eventually did come home. A Vietnamese woman smuggled a collection of bones out of Vietnam into a refugee camp in Thailand in 1986. She gave the bones to American officials. They stayed in storage for decades until technology improved and DNA samples from some of the bones were found to be a match with Van Bendigum's brothers. 5 years ago today, on Veterans Day 2014, Van Bendigum was buried in his hometown. 58,209 American service members died in Vietnam, including 1,239 from Wisconsin. If you don't know the names of any Wisconsinites killed in Vietnam, now you know. Staff Sergeant Jim Van Vendegum. Nicole Fry's favorite hymn was Amazing Grace, so it was fitting that her high school band played the song at her funeral in February 2004. The high school gym in the small town of Lena, which is in northeastern Wisconsin, was packed that cold day, 2 years before her funeral. After the band and the bagpiper finished Amazing Grace, hundreds of people continued singing it a cappella. I was in the Lena High School gym that day too. Nikki Fry's funeral was the first I covered for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel of Wisconsin casualties of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The first of many funerals. Before she joined the Army Reserve, she played flute for 8 years. She loved to cook. She was a waitress at a restaurant in Oconto. She could change the oil in her car. She named her kitten Angelica because she loved angels. She was engaged to be married. Nikki Fry served in the Civil Affairs Battalion and was killed when her convoy was hit by a roadside bomb in southern Iraq. She was 19. She'd been in Iraq only 2 weeks before she died. 6,713 American service members have died in Iraq and Afghanistan, including 125 from Wisconsin. Maybe you know some of the names of Wisconsinites killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, but if you don't, now you know Specialist Nicole Fry. The names of dead are inscribed on walls and monuments, just like the ones here at Milwaukee's War Memorial, but we know there's a story behind each name. A life lived and cut short. It's fitting that we're here today, as we have for many previous Veterans Days, and will for many future Veterans Days, to remember those who gave their lives for our country. People like Arthur Ryan, Roy Nairn, Ralph Jackson, Jim Van Vendegum, and Nicole Fry.
Thank you, Meg. The Greater Milwaukee Fire and Police Pipes and Drums will now play a medley of the service songs from the 5 branches of the United States Armed Forces. When you hear your service song being played, you are welcome to rise. Today is not Memorial Day, a holiday specifically set aside to honor those who died in the service of the country. But we would be remiss if we did not include in today's ceremony a remembrance of those military members who made the supreme sacrifice. Our keynote speaker wrote in her article published this morning about 7 Marines
Food.
hang on. Take 2. Meg wrote in her article this morning about seven Marines from Milwaukee's Fox Company were killed in Iraq during 2 deployments to Afghanistan and who are now remembered right out there. Also remembered in her article was Matthew Rittner, who served with many of those KIA Marines on 2 deployments, who came home healthy, only to be killed in the line of duty as a Milwaukee police officer. Representatives from Veterans Affairs Nursing Academic Partnership scholars from Marquette College of Nursing will present our memorial wreath under the eternal flame while the Greater Milwaukee Fire and Police Pipes and Drums plays the Bells of Dunblane. This haunting melody was written as a memorial after a tragic incident in Scotland in 1996. The Bells of Dunblane Cathedral rang a long tribute to the victims. The pipe major of the Shots and Dykehead Pipe Band composed a slow air for Highland Bagpipes in memoriam of the event. He entitled it "The Bells of Dunblane" because the silence of the people and the sound of the cathedral bells seemed much stronger than any spoken word. Pipes and drums, please. Chief, if you would please, with your van.
This cameraman is useless.
on. Prepare to fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Port. Arm. Freeze and arm. Order. Arm.
The rifle salute of 3 volleys by the combined honor guards of Milwaukee Police Post and Milwaukee Firefighters
Right.
Post.
Face. Forward. March.
With this, we remember those veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice. That was played by retired Milwaukee Police Lieutenant Ruben Burgos and Milwaukee Police Post member James Hutchinson. This concludes our Veterans Day observance.
Honor guard left.
I'd like to thank our distinguished guests for taking the time to participate in our observance. Special thanks to Meg Jones for her memorable address, and the Greater Milwaukee Fire Police Pipes and Drums for their beautiful songs. Thanks and good luck in future endeavors to the nursing students from Marquette and further assistance with this program. Thanks to the rest of you who came, especially in this weather, to remember the veterans and support American Legion programs. All are invited to share a chili luncheon furnished by Culver's near 43rd and Ryan Road. Please remember to thank them at their next.
Oh,
with their
that's
next
my
restaurant.
Culver's.
And thanks also to Dry Hooch for providing the coffee for today. Super thanks to those who came, especially the sheriff and his staff for taking the time out. Certainly appreciate it. And there was a fire department chief that came last year who wasn't on my list of things that came, and he came back again today. And Army veteran, I certainly appreciate him. Thank you all for coming, and please have a safe ride home.
Hi guys, I'd like to say thank you for stopping by on this Monday, Veterans Day. We give this moment silence to all the vets that served your country and who never came home. And we thank you, and we thank them all for your service to your country.